Hello, welcome back to Asian Cinema Season. Today I'll be talking about the movie Tomorrow I Will Date with Yesterday's You, directed by Takehiro Miki. This is a film that I've tried to talk about. I've sat down, I've filmed many different videos. I can't seem to hash out how I want to tackle this film because the plot of the film very much gives away what the film is, and I would love people to go and check this out and to experience it in the way that I experienced it without really knowing what was going to happen, kind of thinking I knew where the twist was going to go but being surprised all the same. But I still don't feel like people are going to be that moved to go and watch it. So I think the best way to talk about this film is to just talk about this film and talk about what the plot is. So let's just get into it. So we have this young couple that forms throughout the movie. The movie opens with a guy called Takatoshi. He's on a train, he sees a girl on the other side of the carriage called Imi, and he thinks to himself, I've fallen in love at first sight. And if this girl gets off at my station, I'm going to go up to her and talk to her. So he does. And he blurts out, I think I've fallen in love with you at first sight. And she, instead of acting more shocked and kind of get away from me, you creep, she's more bemused and kind of a little bit receptive to this guy who has just come and just spilled his guts out to her at their very first meeting. And so they have a relationship that blossoms throughout the film. It's a romance film, but it has an element of science fiction or fantasy. It's very much grounded in the real world, it's set in modern day and all that kind of stuff, but the crux of their relationship, the sole basis of their relationship, is this science fiction element that is introduced. And I thought I knew where it was going to go, and it's to do with time travel. He talks to her about when he was a young boy, a woman saved him from drowning, and he never knew who that woman was. And I was thinking, okay, so it's the girl then, and she traveled back in time, and she was the one who saved him. But that wasn't the case. It was something else, kind of entirely, and that surprised me. Now, first and foremost, I love the acting in the film. I thought the two leads playing Takatoshi and Imi were just fantastic. So likable. Their performances were so enjoyable to watch. I really bought their romance. It was just done very sincerely and earnestly. And I think that's what really made the film so good, was that earnest sensibility that it had, because the science fiction element, the kind of time travel, quasi-time travel element that gets introduced, it isn't really a solid science, and I guess time travel isn't either, but you can look at a film like, say, Back to the Future, where there's at least a method to the madness. You can kind of wrap your head around how the rules work. Here, it doesn't really seem to be a whole idea. It seems to be a really cool concept that allows you to tell this story in an interesting way and give you a fresh and different take on a romance. But if you look at, the seams start to show if you look too hard. A lot of it doesn't really make sense. Well, some of it doesn't make sense. I mean, some of it does, some of it doesn't. And I had a little bit of a hang-up on that. But for me, what made this film really work was the emotions that I felt. And I really connected to this film on a deep level. It stayed with me for days and days. And anyone who's been in a long-term relationship will know that that golden period at the beginning never really lasts, at least not in permanency. Like, you can get back to that if you're lucky, and you can kind of remember that time and have this swelling of appreciation for the person that you're with, but you can't feel like that all the time like you did in the beginning. That sense of excitement and exhilaration at something new and something that you're so enamored with doesn't last. And this film basically presents the idea of, what if that's all you get? What if all you get is this finite period of time with the love of your life, and that's all you've got, and you've got to savor it, or you can just wallow and waste it. So at this point, if you're not compelled to go see the film, I'm going to spoil it a little bit further. The idea is that these two characters, Takatoshi and Imi, are both moving through time in different directions. Every 5 years, they occupy the same space and time for a month. So every 5 years they can meet. But there's only 1 month where they're both 20 years old. So, after they meet and fall in love, 5 years later, he's going to be 25, she's going to be 15. Doesn't work. For her, 5 years after they meet, she's going to be 25, he's going to be 15. It doesn't work. And so they're doomed, basically, to only have this 30-day period together where they could possibly, conceivably, be together and have a relationship. Where the film kind of comes apart is that for him it's very natural. He falls in love with this girl and just becomes completely besotted by her. But for her, where she starts, she jumps right into this passionate kind of loving relationship, and she has to slowly but surely kind of let the relationship lessen, you know, and to have that bond of intimacy be pushed further back, the further she goes into the relationship. And so by the final day, they're strangers and she's in love with him. And that's kind of the heartbreaking element of the film. But what I didn't quite like was that means that she has to basically go into this acting like she's in love with him, you know, and so it's kind of a little bit like, well, did she really love him? I mean, she could grow to love him, of course, and it very much is one of those fairy tale-esque stories where it's like they're destined to fall in love. It's one of those things. But the idea of her coming into her first day of that month and him being so in love with her and her have to kind of act like she's in love with him and then, I guess, trying to figure out if she was, that's where I think the film kind of falls apart. And also the idea of her saving him when he was a little kid. It's nice and so on, but I'm not sure. Again, it just doesn't seem, the dots don't seem to fully connect. However, I love this film. I absolutely loved it. I loved the way it made me feel. I loved watching these characters fall in love with each other. I loved them going through the dilemma of the whole situation when he realizes halfway through the month what's going on and she explains everything to him. You know, he's like, well, this is a sham. This isn't because you made sure you were there on that first day so that I could meet you. You know, it doesn't feel real. But he has to kind of wrestle with that. And again, just the idea, even though it's complete science fiction, just that idea of what if that person that you're going to fall in love with, you can only have this very short but concentrated span of time to just, you know, enjoy that time, you know. I guess some people do that if they meet and they fall in love and then they break up, but I mean, it's it makes you think and it makes you appreciate time more, I feel like. And again, like I said, this film stuck with me and it just really made me appreciate how lucky I am to be in the relationship that I am. And maybe people who are single would see this movie they would see it completely differently unless they'd been in long-term relationships before. If they hadn't, it would be different again. And I think, you know, to me, I'm an old romantic. I love romance films. If they're done right and the leads feel believable and they have chemistry, and they really did here, I love watching those kinds of movies, you know, and it's not a guilty pleasure for me whatsoever. It's one of my favorite genre of movies, is a great romance. To me, it's the emotions, you know. You can look at a film that isn't technically great, but it doesn't really matter if those kind of technical aspects aren't really as precise as they could be. Look at a film like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I mean, that film affected me, you know, in a different way, but it stuck with me for weeks. I felt, you know, emotionally moved by it. I was only about, I guess, 16 when I saw it, and it just stuck with me. Well, that's a film that, you know, despite moving me with those emotions, is still a phenomenal film that is just so well done and executed. This film, Tomorrow I Will Date with Yesterday's You, isn't like that. It's not a great film, but it's a pretty good film, and it has a real earnest heart to it, which made it so immensely likable to me. So it is one of my favorite films of the year, in fact. And you got to go with that. You got to go with what you like, not what is a great film or what is technically good. You know, it's you got to try and cut through some of that stuff sometimes and just reach the heart of it. And if it makes you feel something, then it's worthwhile. It really is. So I was a big fan of this film, and I would love to think that people would go and check it out. But again, it seems a bit niche. It seems a bit maybe cheesy of an idea to people hear me talking about it. Like, oh yeah, there's time travel, they're going in opposite directions. You know, it just seems like a wacky kind of melodrama, sappy movie, and it is in some ways. But yeah, so there we go. That's my thoughts, and I managed to get this under 10 minutes and not waffle as much as I was in previous videos, so I'm happy about that. But if you watch this long and you like romance movies, give it a shot. I definitely recommend it, and I'm glad that I watched it, and I will definitely watch it again and again, and I'm intrigued to see how Connie will react to it when I show it to her one day. So until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you with the next video.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause